Just got to a point where psychologically you're in a place where, I can't really save this account anymore. So you just, go a little crazy at the end. But that to be said, that after that account, you have a little bit of mental space so you can kind of regain your common sense and the resilience to understand that this is just, cost of business, to be able to get back on the horse and do it again, find a better strategy that serves the market conditions, and just keep going at it until you're successful. That's the name of the game.
Welcome everybody to another funded trader of Trader Pool. Today, special guest Ruben is with us. Hi, Ruben. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me here, Michael.
It's for sure. And Ruben is here because we asked him to come and do this interview. He passed the evaluation, actually got the payout, right? The first payout, and then terminated the account. And, we always talk about it here at Trader Pool. We would like to keep it as transparent as it gets. And we need to show you guys that even if you get a payout from time to time, you may be going to terminate the account, and that's totally fine. And this is something that every trader deals with, right? Doesn't matter if it's your own broker account or our funded account. So in that case, it's important to show every aspect and every way or path that every traders go through. And this is why we got Ruben on the line. So thanks for coming again, Ruben. Tell us a little bit. Let's start from the end until we'll go back, right? What happened when you terminated the account? What was it?
So I had been trading this 80K evaluation account that eventually passed and became a funded account. And I was being very methodical and very consistent. I think because I had my eye on the target, where I was kind of, all right, I have to get this goal. So I went through all the different stages and was doing that successfully. And then all of a sudden, once you start seeing the goal closer and closer, you kind of deceive yourself a little bit in the way that you approach things. Sometimes that can take you into the wrong paths. And so after I got my first payout, which was actually very smooth and very quickly, all of a sudden I just psyched myself out, and I started going through a couple of days of max losses. Then I would escalate a little bit to catch up with the losses, and I think that almost like compounded my wrong psychology a little bit more, and ultimately terminated the account. So that was unfortunately. Saying that, obviously, that's not something that is going to stop me, because as we discussed before, it's been 4 years of constantly losing and constantly fighting that battle. So yeah, it teaches you to find new methods and new ways in which you can control your emotions, channelize the emotions for the good path.
Wow. That's amazing to hear, especially after you took the payout. And, the guys that listen in, maybe some of them didn't go through the evaluation even. And you can expect that if someone is getting his payout, he probably will continue to do so over and over again. And like everyone else, you're just a human, and probably there was something either around the market that didn't fit your strategy, or maybe that also could be on a personal life, right? A lot of the times you will see someone that maybe broke up with his girlfriend or something like that, or moved to a different apartment, and those elements will affect his or her trading. So let's go a few steps before that. Before you started to trading on your funded account, or actually when you started to trade, did you change anything, or did you do the same thing as you did on your evaluation?
So I've been back testing specific methods to fit the evaluation and the funded accounts, because I think trading your personal account is a little bit different in the approach versus trading an evaluation or a funded account, because you have guardrails on Trader Pool, which I think is something very, very beneficial for the newer traders, especially. And you have to work through those guardrails in order to find the strategy that is going to allow you to keep moving forward, and also have that risk management that is so important, especially for people like me, where I found where I have low ability to self-control sometimes, you can say, right?
Everyone, you know.
So I think what you guys are doing and the risk management that you're implementing on the platform is really good in order to keep the trader accountable and responsible, and finding a strategy that suits that. So I went through a little bit of a research process, aka many different evaluations accounts that I went through in order to find the right strategy. And I came up with an averaging in or scaling in strategy, where I take very, very small position sizing, and I just find levels in which I go in, obviously after having found a bias in the market. For the evaluation process, I had been trading a little bit of small caps before, the usual, like shorting big pumps and things like that. And that had been working really well. But it got to a point where, you start to see big squeezes of some of the stocks. And again, the risk management aspect sometimes doesn't allow you to see the right moment to exit. So the scaling in strategy worked really, really well and made my process very consistent. I had, up until the point where I terminated the account, I had a fairly high success rate, which didn't, in the scale of the how do you say, the risk to reward ratio wasn't that big. But because I had the success rate, then the account was progressing evenly. And then, and once you get the payout and you figure out, okay, this system is working, then you tweak it, thinking that you know better than the market. And then I started just doing weird things,
Yeah.
And so that kind of taught me to stay true to the plan and just try to keep the rules as fresh as possible every day, regardless of what's happening that day specifically on your trading. And also the resilience to get back on the horse and, do it again, because as you said, everybody goes through that marketplace in psychology quite a bit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that what you're doing and the effort that you're putting is not valid to keep finding the right path for you.
Yeah, 100%. And this is amazing what you just mentioned, because a lot of the times when it comes to performance based, right? I always say we are like athletes, right? Like NBA players, because we are, obviously we go to the court and we play the game. And if we win, our team wins, right? So everything is okay. But in most cases, a lot of the traders will look for the end result. Am I making money or not? But there is a lot of progress that you're doing along the way in order to reach that profitability. And
Exactly.
and you got to give yourself like a tap on the shoulder when you see the progress, even if it's not really P&L progress, but it's actually, I'm learning from my mistakes, tweaking my strategies. I'm doing back testing, as you mentioned. All of those things are actually within the process to become profitable, and you got to, acknowledge them, right?
Exactly. And it's a funny story, actually, now that you mentioned sports and competition and performance. I used to be a professional ballet dancer in San Francisco, at San Francisco Ballet. Now I retire, obviously, and now I teach. I'm based in New York, so I work for American Ballet Theater, another one of the big performance companies. And I did it at very high level too. So, I was a principal ballet dancer, which is kind of like the highest stage that a person can do in my field. And you're totally right. Like the moment where I started to realize and kind of compare what I'm doing now to what I used to do as a professional dancer, it's very much, you have to have your routine, you have to have your process. The moment that you deviate and you get a little bit cocky, okay, I've rehearsed this performance a lot, I think it's gonna be okay. You don't do your full preparation.
Yeah.
That's when I realized that my performance was not as good as probably could have been if I would have followed my regular process, my regular routine, and I would have just taking that moment as the most important moment to prepare me to what was going to happen in front of the audience. And I think trading is a little bit parallel on that sense. And I didn't start to find success until I kind of realized that same concept. And the moments where I deviate from that are the moments where I find, oh, okay, I think I'm starting to know what I'm doing. I think, I know I can foresee a little bit what the market is going to do. And so that kind of like works against what I usually do and the routine that I follow in order to make things or to allow things to happen more controlled.
So it's finding this balance between, on one end, like you said, even if you feel like you're on fire, right? You still need to be humble, and on the other end, show yourself gratitude when you see some progress, and tell yourself that this is part of the path until you reach the profitability.
Exactly.
And as you did, you didn't give up until you reached the funded account, and you didn't give up even after you terminated it. So that's incredible to see. And along the way, you got a payout. So that's also amazing. Ruben, I'm going to jump and show the guys here the dashboard, your dashboard. We can take the one that you actually blew, like the terminated account. So for those of you not familiar, everyone that join us, Trader Pool gets his own dashboard, and you can track your stats and see the progress of the account, basically. And this is Ruben. And like I said, this is the funded account, the terminated account, the one that before he terminated it, he actually got his payout. So this is the chart, a very nice move to the upside. Like you said, your success rate was pretty solid, 66%, before starting to drop at the top. Risk reward is kind of hard, 0.5. So this is definitely something to keep the focus on, and actually, trying to find a way to increase that. A nice move to the upside all the way to 2,500, and then the fallout, right? That was a tough one. But I mean, you actually reached the top at March 12th and ended like 6 days after you terminated the account, right?
Yeah, it was pretty fast. It's so interesting how the psychology just plays you that way and that fast.
Yeah. And when going over your trades, you can see some of them are Tesla, like big techs companies, but most of them, as you mentioned, like small caps, penny stocks, shorting them or long. And tell me a little bit maybe about that, because this is something that is kind of unique. Most guys are either trading small caps, penny stocks, or going for the big names or mid cap. But in most cases, you won't see guys that mixing it up. Tell me a little bit about that. Why is it that you traded Tesla?
Well, I had two different strategies based on my schedule at work. One of them is because I'm able to trade from pre-market, a little bit of pre-market when I get to the office, up until my first few classes in the morning, which is like around 10:30, 11. So I had a strategy that worked with the small caps for pre-market, in which, you see the companies that have run for a long time, and in terms of price percentage during the morning, and then just find spots in which you can short. And as I said, I have a scaling in strategy which works really well to make myself be a little bit more patient and go a little bit more gradual into understanding what the stock wants to do. So that worked really, really well during a period of time during pre-market. And then once the market opens, I use a kind of similar scaling in strategy, but this one more defined on levels with Tesla, which is it has a lot of volume. It has a lot of volatility that traders can take advantage of. And then I use Camarilla pivot levels, which can give you certain amount of room for certain strategies, and also daily levels. So I use those basically horizontal levels in order to find entries, and then I scale in and I scale out of those levels based on what I see. And so I had a little bit more of a bias towards the small caps, just because of how much they run. And there was a period of time where the dumps were actually quite heavy. And I took advantage of that on the way up of my equity curve. And then there was a few run squeezes where, like things moved so fast that I just couldn't control the risk management fast enough. And I think that was the beginning of the decline on my equity curve. And it just got to a point where psychologically you're in a place where, I can't really save this account anymore. So you just, go a little crazy at the end. But anyways, that to be said, that after that account, you have a little bit of mental space so you can kind of regain your common sense and the resilience to understand that this is just, cost of business, to be able to move, get back on the horse and do it again, find a better strategy that serves the market conditions, and just keep going at it until you're successful. That's the name of the game.
That's amazing. And yeah, it's funny to see, you mentioned that once you reached or got closer to the termination level or the max loss level, you became more aggressive or started to do some crazy stuff. And it's interesting to see that I saw traders coming, almost reaching on the evaluation phase, almost reaching the target, and then doing the same thing that you mentioned, like going more aggressive or doing crazy stuff just to reach that target instead of continue the progress very smoothly until they reach it. Super interesting, all the psychology, the human psychology behind those things. Yeah.
I think it's the almost like seeing where you are so far away from the goal that you almost want to double up in order to catch up with the same rate of advance that you had before.
Yeah.
And it almost makes you a little bit more desperate, right?
Amazing. And maybe before we wrap it out here, I wanted to ask you about maybe indicators. Are you using anything of that in order to, just the decision making in order to help your decision making?
Yeah, I basically just look at the daily chart in order to get an idea of a bias. And then I'll use the daily pivots like high of day, low of day, maybe using some pre-market levels, high of pre-market, low of pre-market. And then I use this pivot system. It's called Camarilla Pivots. It's some calculations based on previous days, highs, lows, open, close. And it gives you a set of pivots for the day that gives you also an idea of, okay, the stock is on breakout mode. Maybe the stock is opening middle of the value, so it's going to be ranging a little bit more. And also based on what you see on the daily, then you can get a closer idea of how you want to play the stock that day. But mostly horizontal levels, obviously you look at the left of the chart in order to get an idea of where price is, where it's been before, and what is likely to do in the future, even though you can never predict.
Yeah.
But yeah, just try to keep it simple. I have a few moving averages also, just to kind of never lose track of the trend, even though sometimes, the urge is to keep fighting the trend just because you want to catch some reversions to the mean and so on. So I try to just strip layers of complication off of the stuff that I've done before and just try to simplify as much as possible.
Important, definitely. Keep it as clean as possible. That will be the best solution on a technical level, the best way to go. Amazing, Ruben. That was incredible, helpful. I'm sure the guys that just listened will have tons of information and insight. And when they apply for the evaluation, they can put it to the test. Thanks so much again for coming. And for those of you who want to check us out, go to tradepool.com. We'll be in touch. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.